I'm gonna answer some of your questions. 20 mil, 20 mil. I'm very good at like figuring out girth. Hey everyone, it's Tom here, and today I am going to be sorting out my office because although it kind of looks like it is organized, it really kind of isn't. And I've got so much stuff here that's also just arrived from the UK, as well as a delivery of yarn. So I'm gonna take all of this stuff out, and while I'm doing it, I'm gonna answer some of your questions. I don't even really know where to start with this, to be honest. This was something that Robbie got me for Christmas last year, which is very sweet. From Paris little keychain, the croissant bag that I made in Paris. Some don't drink and dive trunks. This is some of the leftover yarn that I had from the jumper or the cardigan that I made for Sharon Stone. So I'm going to take all this stuff out, and although it's really pretty, I just don't know when I'm going to use it next.
When you were knitting by the pool, did you ever imagine it would take off like this?
When I first started knitting, the whole reason for knitting wasn't to do anything other than give myself a little bit of a chance to unwind and kind of get out of my own way. And I could never have imagined that people would have even cared about the fact that I knit. So for it to all to kind of like go a little bit weird and crazy after the Olympics when they saw me knitting on poolside is, yeah, it's quite surreal actually. And that jumper here actually was the one that I made while I was on poolside in Tokyo. And then this is one that I made in Paris. And then recently in my shipment, I found these are the trunks that I wore when winning the silver with Noah in Paris. And these were the trunks that I wore to win gold in Tokyo with Matty. I actually wrote in here, Olympic champ. I mean, it's a little bit faded now because they were wet in my bag for ages. There's all sorts in this office. I'm gonna start figuring out containers for this yarn.
How long did it take you to make all the Halloween jumpers?
The Halloween patterns were actually knit up quite quickly because they're so chunky. The problem is, it's not so much that it takes a long time to make them, it's more it takes long to write the patterns and get it all adjusted and making sure that as I'm making it, I'm writing everything down. Because if I don't write everything down, it can be a little bit more challenging when it comes to trying to figure out the pattern after the fact. But this one took about 3 days to make. Then some of the Freddy Krueger one took like a day and a half. The tote bag was 1 day. And then the skull sweater vest, that took a little bit longer. That was about 4 or 5 days. But that was just because I didn't have as much time in between to get everything done. Right, more yarn coming out. This is some of the yarn that I used for the Thursday Murder Club sweater that I made. I'm trying to put all of the stuff that I'm not going to use as much into there. So much yarn. This was something that I had an idea because I have made a sweater for Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande when it came to their Wicked release last year. But this was something that I was going to make them like a fluffy bag to go with it, but never quite got around to it. So maybe that'll be a future project, but we'll see. This is some of the yarn that I used for the Bretman sweater. So this was part of the chicken. Oh my gosh.
What's your favorite activity aside from crafts and sports?
I really enjoy cooking as something that I enjoy to do outside of diving and knitting. If there's something about cooking, especially for friends and family, I find really fun and enjoyable because, I don't know, food always brings people together and I love food. So I think that's something that I enjoy doing. Although it can be a challenge sometimes when you have a child crawling up your leg when you're trying to concentrate on cooking things, but it always has a nice payoff in the end, I guess.
Who taught you how to knit?
There wasn't anyone in particular that taught me how to knit because it was YouTube that I just watched some tutorials and then before I knew it I was knitting. But I do think it is something that is always easier when someone can show you, but there are definitely, like, tutorials obviously help a huge amount. It was a combination of people helping me and a combination of people sending me tutorials of certain things. So I think once you know the basics of knitting, then you're good to go with, you know, anything else that you might need in terms of like learning new stitches. You start to understand the mechanics of knitting a little bit more. This sage colour is the colour that I use for the Kelly Clarkson cardigan. So I'm running slightly lower on this color just because of the fact that because I made something out of this.
Was there anyone who inspired you to knit and crochet as awesome as you do?
Oh gosh, well thank you very much for that compliment. I feel like one thing I always like to do with anything that I learn to do is learn the basics, learn the rules of what you're meant to do when it comes to knitting, crochet or any craft you do. And so you know when you're breaking the rules, when it comes to shape, when it comes to needle size, when it comes to tension, all of those things. If you know how it's meant to look and what it's meant to be like, and then you start adjusting things, then it can be fun and creative. So I guess the moral of the story is that I like to occasionally break the rules when it comes to how someone should knit.
What's your favorite project so far?
Oh, I think my favorite project will definitely be the one that I made in the Tokyo Olympics, just because it was the one that kind of like started everything. But then I've got all kinds of things that I've really enjoyed making. Like for example, this was something I made for Lance for his birthday one year. And I remember it taking me absolutely ages to make. And it was like so intricate with the shaping on the sleeves and the way that the shaping went into the cardigan, and also like all of the color work and it took me forever. And it was it was actually just before the Olympics in Tokyo, because I tore my meniscus 6 weeks before the Olympics and I had to figure out a way to pass the time. It was the beginning of June and I had 10 days where I wasn't able to do anything. So this was what I made before Lance's birthday, while I was recovering from surgery. But it took forever, but I also found it really fun because it was one of the projects where I used probably the smallest needles and the thinnest yarn that I have in a while. Although it still looks quite chunky, it took me quite a bit of time honestly, but I think it's kind of cute. Okay, right. Okay, I feel like we're starting to get into it now. It's got so much yarn. Okay, we'll put these here now. Woo. Okay, right, that can go back there.
What's it like being retired from diving? Are you enjoying having more time at home?
Being retired is one of the weirdest feelings from diving, because I miss it every day and I watch people competing and I'm always a bit like, ugh, I want to be, in it and I want to be doing it, but at the same time I know that I'm too old at this point to be keeping doing it. So it is very weird, but at the same time it's nice to be able to spend more time with family and being able to spend more time doing other things I love to do and other things that I never really had time to do when I was training, or even things that I weren't allowed to do, like going and doing certain workout classes or staying up past 9 o'clock, like all of those little things that may sound silly, but you never really get the chance to do it when you're training full time. Also, look at this yarn, look at all these lovely colours. I mean, this yarn is a weight changing yarn and it makes simple projects look extremely complicated, which is quite fun. So I'm gonna put these out nicely.
How do you keep your excitement for knitting going?
Knitting is always exciting to me because there's always something new to learn. There's always something new to do. It's not as simple as like, oh, you've learned every single stitch that you can ever learn. Like, you can learn so many new things all the time. So it's like this never-ending cycle of new stuff, which for me keeps it interesting. And there's always something new that I find inspiration from, and little random things that I see, either whether it's in nature, whether it's in stores, whether it's whatever that may look like. I'm always finding something that I find inspiring. So I'm able to kind of constantly switch it up, which is also a lot of fun. Pink to make the boys wink. Right, okay, I feel like I've narrowed that down quite nicely now. Now the rest of the drawers are an absolute tip. Random bits that I feel like I need to sort out into things. So I've got my 12 millimeters. Oh, look at these chonky boys. I mean, look at the girth on that bad boy. 25 millimeters. 15s, 20 mil, 20 mil. What we got here? This is 15 again, I think. Yep, 15s. 10. I'm very good at figuring out girth. The chunkiness of the needles without really. This looks like a 4 to me. Oh, I'll make with love tone. Cute. What's this in here that I'm making? Oh, this is when I was going to make jewellery. What's that? Well, let's put you outside. I don't know. Oh, like you ate it. There you go. You can go and live a lovely life outside now.
What are some sources of inspiration when designing new things?
Oh, some sources of inspiration when designing new things can be as simple as looking at finding a colour, finding a stitch pattern, finding inspiration with, like, I don't know, looking outside and seeing a tree and be like, oh, like those leaves are like an interesting shape. Why don't I try and make something in that shape? Like, there's so many different forms. So for me, it's about not putting a limit on what you think you can make and like always trying to push yourself when making something new, because if you try and do the same thing all the time, it can be a little bit repetitive and boring. So I think trying to like switch it up all the time will constantly help you keep yourself inspired. I went to the hardware store and got some rope and made a handbag out of it, which is on my rail in the bathroom. Tokyo Olympic gold medallion. Olympic bronze medal from London. That can sit in there as well. This is Paris. Yeah. Oh God. Get in there. And this is Rio. Rio de Janeiro. The day before my competition in Paris, I knit a little flag for Robbie to fly when I was competing. And I should have used intarsia, but instead I used stranded work, and it looks like this on the back. But we don't need anybody to know that. And then these were the things that were attached to my flowers when we won the medal in Tokyo, which you can sit here. And this one is also from Tokyo. You can sit there. Now, this was my first ever international or like world major medal in 2008 in the 10-meter synchro. It was also what qualified me for my first Olympic Games.
Was there anything that you created that you found to be particularly challenging?
Most things that I've created have been a challenge in one way or another, whether it is a challenge to write the pattern, whether it's a challenge to get it done in a certain deadline. But I'd say the things that I found most challenging was getting to grips with colour work. Because colour work can be really time consuming and be a little bit confusing, especially if you're doing lots of colour changes all at once. But then once I figured out how to do colour changes and how to do it properly, everything kind of clicked. I was like, oh, now I see how this was meant to go, and it all becomes a lot easier. There never really would have been a reason for me to try colour work unless I was ready to push myself outside of that comfort zone. So I think that's something that I've learned from knitting, is that pushing yourself outside your comfort zone can sometimes really like allow you to try new skills. And then there's that certain feeling of like accomplishment when you're like, I did that. I managed to and it wasn't so bad. So sometimes taking the time to be a little bit more patient when trying to do things for the first time, it all makes it a lot easier. The plan for Christmas patterns, I am currently working on them as we speak. And I am planning to do a little knitmas situation where every day I release a video for Advent to be able to, so then by the end of the 24 videos, you'll have something that you'll be able to use this Christmas. So watch this space for that. If you've been paying attention, there might have been something that you might have seen, but we're going to keep it secret for now because I want it to be a surprise knit along for everyone. So watch this space for that. But I'm going to quickly stop yapping and get all of this whipped together. I'll show you the finished product, but for now, thank you for tuning into the Q&A, and I'm going to get back to finishing sorting out my office. There we have it. A lovely, clean office. Boo.